Join us live every Tuesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on GluFM for Minding Your Business with me, Attorney Rishma Eckert, to discuss the law and your business. Email us with your questions at info@mybshow.com. And remember, success comes from minding your business. Welcome to another episode of Minding Your Business. I am your host, Rishma Eckert. I'm an attorney at Eckert Law, PLLC. And today, I'm very excited because we have another Minding Your Business Small Business Spotlight. Our first spotlight was Priscilla Dames from Wingspan Seminar, and now we have Stephanie Fortune from Fortune Consulting. The first time I met Stephanie, fun fact, I told her she had the most interesting last name because I couldn't believe that Fortune was her actual last name when I saw Fortune Consulting. It was just so, fortuitous in a way. So before we get to having Stephanie introduce herself, I want to remind everyone out there for small businesses, the second draw of the PPP is still available. If you need help with your company, you can find all that information on sba.gov. And the PPP is the Paycheck Protection Program. And there's also EIDL, which is EIDL, and that you may be able to be eligible for. Go on the SBA website and see if you fit the criteria, and maybe you can get some help for your small business. I want to also say that if you want to be eligible for the Small Business Spotlight, please make sure that you email us at info@mybshow.com. Tell us a little bit about your business, and we can set you up with a date where you can highlight your business. Our goal this year is to be able to highlight small businesses in our area, because last year a lot of people took a lot of detrimental hits to their business. So we want to play our part in the community to be able to have people highlight their businesses, get the ball rolling again, get on your feet again. So this is our small part in being able to do that. My quote of the week, I love this one. It's by Warren Buffett. And if you don't know who Warren Buffett is and you are a business person, I suggest you do more reading. He says, in the business world, the rear view mirror is always clearer than the windshield. Now, I absolutely love that quote because for many, many weeks now, since we started the show, we keep on talking about perspective, and I talk about my trifecta of consultants that you're going to need for your business. Your rear view mirror is always clearer because in hindsight, you can look back and say, well, maybe I should have hired this consultant. Maybe I should have done this thing instead. Your path forward is not so clear because a lot of times you have obstacles that you have to go through and figure out. But that is why we have this show. We want to be able to give people resources so that you can maybe not, go forward in such a blind area, but that you have the consultants. And that's why it's not only about law. We talk about business, we talk about consultancy, we talk about all the things that you need as resources to help your business. So I absolutely love that quote. The more prepared you are, we always talk about being prepared. Be prepared so you know how to attack certain issues when you get to those obstacles. So today we have Stephanie Fortune from Fortune Consulting LLC. And we're going to do like a two-parter for this small business spotlight. I want to definitely talk to Stephanie about her company. I want her to talk about her services because it's very unique from some of the other services that we've presented on the show before. And then I also want to talk to her about her experience in entrepreneurship because she is a minority woman. She's younger. I assume, I've never asked you your age, but I just assume that you're a young entrepreneur. And I like to hear that perspective because that could be inspiring for some of our listeners out there. So welcome to the show, Stephanie. Thank you so much for taking the time to be able to do this with us.
Absolutely. The honor is truly mine, and I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about entrepreneurship. I'm excited to talk about Fortune Business Consulting and just sharing information and insights that can help other business professionals and professionals at large.
Perfect. So why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So as you mentioned, my name is Stephanie Fortune. I am the founder of Fortune Business Consulting, and it's kind of, it's interesting because it didn't all start there or so glamorous, so to speak. So I'm first generation Haitian American here. I am come from a large family. I'm one of 13. Yep, and you heard it correctly, one of 13.
Wow. Okay.
So pretty big family. But born and raised here and migrated from Miami to Broward County now. So it's been a bit of a transition. I studied business management at Florida Atlantic University, graduated in 15. And again, since then, just kind of gone off and started this company and been supporting businesses and truly focusing on empowerment. So that may pertain to, again, some of my business clients in the philanthropic space, mentoring folks. So just the whole gamut in terms of truly empowering. That's something that at a very young age, I realized was critical for me. And so that's kind of been my core value or mission, so to speak, in terms of the things that I do in life.
That sounds wonderful. And that definitely fits a lot of the goals and the perspectives and the intention of having this show as well. You know, we just to get you a little caught up, when we originally spoke about having this show, we realized that, especially for our communities, because you said, you know, you're Haitian American. I'm also West Indian. You know, I'm born in Guyana, grew up in Barbados, grew up in Belize. I've moved around the Caribbean. Yeah. I've found, and our producers are Jamaican. So I've found that in our communities that there's a huge educational gap with being able to start your own business, being able to have the resources that you need. You're so isolated out there sometimes. At least that's what it seems. So we wanted to be able to have a show where we can give just general information and let people know that it's possible. It's possible to do your own thing.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely
without getting into too much specifics, because we will talk specifically about your services, how did you tell us a little bit about the type of business consultancy that you run and how you got into this specific type of consultancy?
Sure. It's a question that I get often, especially after people meet me, because it's not that seamless of a transition, if you will, once people kind of meet me and they see my personality and how vibrant I am. But once I was in the university, so studying at FAU, I had part-time jobs, just like most people. And one of my jobs was in a retail store. At the time, it was Sears, and I eventually moved to Dillard's and moved into a leadership position. But one of the things and patterns that I noticed was that there was a disconnect, if you will, between management, right, or the upper level leaders within an organization and their staff or employees. And the truth of the matter is they didn't seem to be motivated enough. But for me as a young person, I thought, well, if I want flexibility in my schedule, if I want time off on the weekends, if I want to be able to, you know, do these different things, get holiday time, I'm just going to produce. Like, I'm just going to do my job effectively. So then when I ask, my boss or my superior will have more leniency, right? So it just made natural sense to me. And I was a natural worker, so it just made sense. But unfortunately, for so many other people, especially in my age group, that wasn't a natural thing to do. And so I began to kind of study this area. I was intrigued by it and came across human capital consulting. And so when I came across human capital consulting, which is the person, right, the people within an organization, that their greatest asset ultimately, you know, I began to notice that there were different things that motivated people, right? So different people might be motivated by different things. So maybe accolades, maybe public recognition, maybe time off, maybe flexibility on their schedule, maybe money, right? And so by looking into all these areas, again, it intrigued me and compelled me enough to want to kind of focus on that area a little bit more and see how I can support not only the employees, but the business owners so they can empower one another. Right. So so the way that I like to think about it is your employees are truly your greatest asset, and they're also your first line of defense, especially as your business grows. You're not going to be talking to every supplier. You're not going to be talking to every customer. You're not going to be talking anytime someone calls your company. And so your employees need to represent your organization and vice versa. And so, again, just wanting to focus on that and truly empower everyone, I kind of ventured into this space. I sought out some folks in the consulting space. I met someone in the industry here in Broward County and just kind of worked for him for a while. I eventually went to go work directly for a PEO. And after some time, I got the request from a few of my clients to offer more tailored solutions to their business. So they liked working with me and they liked my personality. And sometimes there was a little bit of red tape, so to speak, in terms of what my organizations were able to provide or to do, but they still wanted to work with me. And so obviously it was some thought that had to go into it. There were some tough decisions, truth be told, that had to go into it to determine to just go off on my own and bet on myself, really. But ultimately I did. And to be honest with you, I'm so very thankful that I did. And so again, now we help small and mid-sized businesses with payroll, human resource services, workers' comp, and benefits, and all just kind of focusing on the human resource element of an organization so we can truly empower businesses so that they can then empower their employees in turn.
Wow, that is a mouthful. Good stuff. Human capital.
Yes.
Human capital consulting.
Yes,
I just, never termed it that way, but that's very interesting. And you kind of hit on my next question. I wanted to know, why is it that you made the decision? How is it that you made a decision to go on your own,
sure,
to have your own company versus working for one of the companies that you've mentioned you work for, or, one of these big conglomerate type companies
right,
that do this? Why did you specifically want to be on your own and do your own thing?
Sure. So, I mean, again, you mentioned I kind of touched on it, right? But the long and the short of it is, at a very early age, and I guess because I had to be very self-sufficient from a very early age, it taught me that, number one, I couldn't really rely on everyone wholeheartedly, or anyone wholeheartedly, right? It's not something that I felt comfortable doing, because at a whim, they could decide, hey, you know what, Steph, you're no longer a fit for this organization. Hey, you know what, Steph, our synergies just simply aren't there anymore. And I've, of course, experienced that. Maybe the company was going in another direction, things of that nature. And in addition to that, because I really did have to be self-sufficient at a very young age, the entrepreneurial spirit was truly in me. And I realized I did go above and beyond, more so than my peers. And when you do that enough and realize, okay, I'm not being challenged enough, or maybe my compensation or whatever it is not commensurate to the value that I put out, you begin to really assess that and determine, okay, does this still make sense for me? And especially when my clients are literally demanding more of me.
Telling you.
Right,
Exactly.
right. So it's like, how do I do this?
And have the loyalty and have, exactly, yeah.
Yes. And it's crazy because I've had two mentors of mine that kind of, from clients, became mentors. And they really helped me through the transition. So it's been a very interesting process, but those were probably the biggest motivators for me to go ahead and take that leap of faith. And they gave me a lot of confidence. So that certainly did help me as well.
Great answer. And I think that we found a lot of that happening last year when the pandemic hit and so many companies were doing layoffs or furloughs, and people felt really uncertain about their future, and they did not want, just like you said, they didn't want to hinge their futures onto another company's decision. And so it was a boom. And I've talked on the show before that in my business with doing incorporations, contracts, trademarks, copyrights, just the business law aspect of it, it really was a boom for me, because people are starting to realize, hey, I want to have my own thing now. I do not want to hitch my wagon to someone else's decisions. So
exactly. And you can't rely solely on one source of income either, right? That's another thing, because it could go bye-bye in just a minute. And for me, I've learned that. And so I've built over the years, I probably have about 7 sources of income now. And, I'm still making a point to continue to diversify my portfolio, if you will.
That's absolutely correct. Diversification is very important. Yes, Lisa.
Stephanie, in one of our previous episodes, I believe it's called 7 Questions to Ask Yourself Before Entering Entrepreneurship, Rishma spoke heavily about, someone who will be going from an employee to an employer, and a lot of people don't know how to handle that transition. Now, in your experience, what were some of the things that you had to change about yourself, if any, going from an employee to employer?
Great question. So for me personally, and I am not the norm. So for me personally, I won't say there was a significant amount of things that I had to change, because I was one that manages my schedule effectively. But that's a huge shift for people that are going from employee to employer. Reason being is your employer tells you what time to start work. They tell you when to take a lunch break. They tell you what projects to work on. They tell you what's a priority and what isn't. But when you're on your own, those decisions are for you to make. And for me, because I was already operating in that manner, it was a very smooth transition. But I know that's a big shift for people. The second element is, all right, I eat what I kill pretty much, right? And so again, you're not relying on your employer to maybe feed you leads if you have leads, or you're not relying on, someone else to pay for a membership or pay for a certification. That's all on you. You essentially have to go out there, bring the business in, and work on the business, right? So you have to provide those clients whatever product or service it is that you went out there and got, right, or talked about. You have to now do that on your own. You don't rely on maybe different departments to handle procurement, different departments to handle sales, different departments to handle service. When you're first making that transition, you're doing everything, right? Another element of it is leadership, right? So if you're not in a position of leadership, or you have not been in a position of leadership, transitioning on your own now, if you have a team under you or you're growing that team, you need to understand EQ, emotional intelligence. You need to understand how to communicate effectively. You need to understand how to lead, right? And not simply pull your staff or pull your people. You need to understand how to empower them so that they want and desire to follow you. So these are just a few things that for me, I've had to learn to adopt or kind of transition, if you will. In some areas, again, some came a little bit more seamless and easier for me. In other areas, it took a little bit of time and took a little bit of stumbling. But those are three key areas that I know that a lot of people that are transitioning from employee or W-2 to employer experience, and again, often have challenges with and almost have to kind of stabilize. But the time element of it, being able to produce your own business and leadership are super critical.
Awesome. If you guys have any questions, you can text us 862-215-3979 or email info@mybshow.com. And if you guys are watching the live stream, the email address and the phone numbers are on the screen for you as well.
I want to add to your answer to Stephanie. I found that with my clients, a lot of them who are making the transition, the thing that shocks them the most is the great deal of administrative work that accompanies the service that you do or the good that you sell. I think it really becomes sort of a sticker shock for them to say, well, I'm doing this thing and I'm really good at doing this one thing, but now I have to get legal involved or a bookkeeper or, another type of consultant or whoever. And the large amount of admin work that goes on the back end, like you mentioned, the billing and all that takes up a lot of time. So it's not just the time management of doing the actual service. I found with, especially with myself, some days I spend all day doing follow-up calls, meetings, answering emails, doing admin stuff. And then when the night comes, I go, oh man, I have to do the actual work that I'm supposed to be doing. So I think that a lot of the transition comes from the fact that if you're working for someone, they have people who are doing all the back end stuff, and you can focus on the thing that you're supposed to be focusing on.
Correct.
When you make that transition, it's all you, at least in the beginning, it's all you. But the reward, I mean, like you talk about the flexibility, the everything that you make, it becomes yours. You're not getting commissions, or you're not getting a set amount and someone else is making their dividends or whatnot. You basically get what you as long as you work hard, you can get the benefit of doing so. Did you find it especially difficult having your own business, being a young entrepreneur?
Ooh, okay. So young, that's the distinction. So I want to make sure I answer clearly. That is the distinction, okay. Because, and I want to clarify the question too. It's because the assumption is that if you've been working in the industry for 20, 30 years, you know the industry, you transition on your own, especially in my profession, the older attorneys are seen as more experienced and they know what they're doing and whatnot. As a young entrepreneur, I know you've had work experience, but you're relatively young compared to, a lot of my clients at least. Right.
So did you find it especially difficult as like a young person wanting to have their own company?
Sure. So once again, very great question. So for me, I did receive that, right? There were certainly times where, and I don't think that people were so outright about it or very direct about it, but at times you could almost see maybe body language or them kind of wondering or them alluding to age or something of that effect, right? So I certainly did get, the inquiries or, the stares or the looks and things of that nature. I think, though, because of who I am, because of how I carry myself, because of the credibility and my contribution to, let's say, society and my peers and, you know, other businesses, the community at large, that also gave me leverage and credibility. So I think that for me specifically, what it did was, once a person actually got past the age shock or image shock, if you
And
will.
talk to you,
Correct.
right? And actually talk
Correct.
to you.
Correct. Then they would realize, okay, damn, she knows her stuff, right? Or they would realize, okay, look, she's not actually, you know, the image that I had in my mind, or she actually really
Correct.
does know about this industry, or she does have experience beyond the average, you know, XYZ-year-old, right? And so I think that a lot of times people will view you in a particular light, or will make certain assumptions based on what you look like or how old they believe that you are, and therefore how much experience you might have. But when it came to me specifically, I always wanted my actions, my efforts, my contribution to speak louder than all of that. And I'm thankful that for the most part it did. Again, not to say that I've never received the stares, the questions, the looks, and so forth, because especially, if I'm being very honest with you, in some parts of the county, that's more prevalent than others, right? So people won't even look at you because you're a certain age, right? People won't even shake your hand because, you know, things like that. And I've received that, right? In very well-established organizations and groups, right? And I'm not gonna sit here and really bash any groups or anything like that. However, I've certainly received that. But I know what I've received more of are people that gave me the opportunity to speak, gave me the opportunity to connect and build a relationship, gave me an opportunity to showcase whether I did know my stuff or not, and that I'm super thankful for.
Yeah, great answer. And that just goes to show you'll get a lot of the stereotypes and the prejudices, but as long, you know, I feel like you sort of mirror with my experiences, as long as you get a chance to actually get over that hump and they talk to you and they realize like, wow, they actually know what they're talking about. I've had people straight up ask me, how long have you been practicing?
Right.
They don't care about any of the qualms or anything like that. They're
Right.
like, no, you need to tell me right now when
Right.
you got admitted, how long you've been practicing. How
Right.
I was like, wow, okay, pretty upfront, but it you know, it comes with business ownership. And you said something very, very important, and I wanna highlight what you said: mentorship. We talk about mentorship a lot on this show, about having that additional resource and guidance in, you know, if you don't have that type of person in your life, you know, older sibling or parents who've had businesses, if you needed guidance, you have to have someone to be able to ask, or at least chit chat, brainstorm. How important is mentorship to the success of your business?
Ooh, okay. So it's crucial. And, you know, we often hear that you're the sum of the 5 people that you keep around you most, right? And I kind of expound that to not just people, right? But maybe the books that you read, the events that you attend, the TV shows that you listen to, the music that you listen to, the energy that you engage with, right? So in terms of mentorship and that being one of those key elements, it's been crucial. And I say that because oftentimes, you know, we don't know what we don't know, right? So there are different levels of consciousness and awareness, right? Sometimes you've never had a certain experience. So you talk about your mother or parents rather. Both of my parents are deceased. And, you know, my father abandoned me when I was very young, and my mom, she's been gone for a while. But I didn't have that opportunity, right? So for me, what I did was actively sought out folks that either had experienced what I'm looking to experience, or actively doing what I want to do, or listen to podcasts. I love books. I have a library, and I need a new bookshelf. Let's put it that way. I have books. I listen to TED Talks. All those things are super critical. But what I do when it comes to mentors, or seek out people that I admire, seek out people that I look up to, seek out people that, again, are where I desire to be, or are the epitome of what I want my future to look like. And from that point, I just start building that relationship. Again, there's reciprocity there. You build rapport and you touch base. It's not just a gimme, gimme, gimme relationship, right? There has to be reciprocity there. You have to lead with contribution. But it's been paramount to not only my business success, but my personal success. And it's helped me navigate certain waters. And like you talked about, when I get asked how old I am, or when I'm asked, you know, my experience in a specific space, I handle that question a little bit better when it comes to negotiations, when it comes to figuring out, okay, how much am I worth? When it comes to having those tough conversations, I've been able to get guidance on that. And, I don't know if you'll touch on this question, but for me, being a young female and Black business owner and working with business owners, right? Only 2%, if I'm not mistaken, of business owners in the country are minority women, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's correct. So that means that for me, and my numbers are very close to this, roughly, I'll go and say like 93% of my clients are non-Black. And so even navigating those waters or knowing how to have those conversations, or again, not being stuck on certain things that are on the exterior, I've gotten a lot of guidance from mentors on how to do that. And so it's super critical. And I would absolutely encourage anybody that's in a space that wants to grow, wants to be challenged, wants to get better, to seek out mentors, seek out those people that are or a reflection of where you want to be. Seek them out.
That's a fabulous answer. That's actually a really, really great answer. And just for the folks out there, I want to say that one of the things that I really admire about Stephanie, because we are friends on social media as well, is your ability to network. It's amazing. I see all the things that you do, all the organizations that you're involved with. And me and Stephanie, we met each other when I had an office in Sunrise. So I joined the Sunrise Chamber of Commerce. Shout out to them, because that's how we were able to meet, because you were also part of that chamber. So again, building relationships that we talk about all the time, the building relationships part. If we reached out to the chamber because we wanted to network. This is, of course, all pre-pandemic. We reached out to the chamber because we wanted to go to the events and network and know people within the city that you had your business in, or that I had my business in. And your ability to go out there and join chambers or join organizations that you admire, that you see that reciprocity that you're talking about, I think it's fabulous. And for younger entrepreneurs out there, take a page out of Stephanie's book, because it's really important that you put yourself in a position where you're basically hobnobbing with the types of businesses that you want to do business with and people that you can learn from. It's great. It's actually very great. And I met a lot of different small businesses. Right, exactly. What's the saying that your net worth is your net worth?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And I absolutely love that saying as well, because it's true. The more people that you have, the more people that can say, hey, I know a great PEO company. Mm-hmm. Let me go ahead and contact Stephanie or something like that.
Exactly.
The more people that know what you do, the more you're able to have those referrals, and you get to know people on a personal level, and you get to respect what they do, and you get to trust them, which is really also very important in business. How would you describe your life as an entrepreneur?
So, somewhat loaded question. So for me, how would I describe my life as an entrepreneur? Well, for me specifically, like you said, like I network and I hustle and I'm all over the place pretty much all the time. Barring COVID, I'm like this. So like right. So many different things, right?
Yeah.
And so for me as an entrepreneur and in my life specifically, I'll give you today. So because this month is it's a disability awareness month, one of the initiatives that I have is to help raise awareness for a nonprofit organization called Raina Group Home. And so because of that, I'm actually going to be putting on an event this month, and it's going to be essentially like a virtual wine tasting. We're going to have a sommelier, we're going to have wine delivered, and we're going to just kind of raise awareness, raise funds, but have a lot of fun in the process. And so for me as an entrepreneur, this is a big part of what I do, give back and support local nonprofits that need support, right? So that's a big part of it for me. Another element of what I do as an entrepreneur, right, is, again, servicing clients. Sometimes that's not always going to be the easiest thing to do. So there is hand holding, there is, conference calls, there is, kind of tailoring speech when, there's aggression on one side and you have to beautify the email now to send it to someone else, right? You have to essentially be a therapist at times of sorts, or you have to be able to calm people down. You have to be able to negotiate on people's behalf. So there's many layers and many elements to this. Sometimes you're up late at night, texting or calling or emailing, and it's the whole gamut. So as an entrepreneur, it is multifaceted. So you're the business owner, you're the salesperson, you're the customer service rep. You're the associate that's going to the post office and making sure that you have your stamps and letters sent out to everyone that you need to send out. You're the payroll person. Like you wear pretty much all the hats within your organization. And so for me, it's multifaceted within my organization, but within the community as well.
Stephanie, you just spoke about, wearing all the hats in the business. Now, how difficult was it for you to go from handling all of that to delegating? Because, people feel like other people are not going to be vested like they are in their own business. And they feel like if they don't do it, nobody else is going to do it like they can. So how was it for you to go from doing all of that on your own and then having to delegate those tasks to other people?
Okay, so yes. So I like this question because it came a little bit harder for me than I thought it would. And I say that because when you're doing something for so long, and again, like I am not your average young professional. And so my level of service, my level of delivery, my level of going above and beyond, because it is my brand, it is it is me. I go hard, right? And so when you then, like you mentioned, delegate a task or certain responsibility or client service calls or broker calls or something of that effect, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna need you to give me everything you got, because listen, like my people have a certain standard, right? And my business has a certain standard of care that they're familiar with being delivered to them. Right. So even if out in the industry, compared to my competitors, I'm way up here, but within my own organization, it's like, okay, Steph, you got to beat yourself almost every time. Right. And so for me, I think that was more of the challenge in terms of, all right, delegating certain tasks and responsibilities. Okay, you call this client. All right, there's a challenge here. Make sure you call, gather the documents that's needed. Let them know that I'm going to call them back. All right, so you're working on marketing material. Does it sound like me? Does it sound like the company? And
exactly.
people make fun of me, right? Because I'm a Gemini. And then there's like there's like a Stephanie in the daytime and then a Stephanie after dark, right? So then it's like, again, how do I come across as authentic as possible, and then just be that true person? And so I think that was probably the biggest thing, just making sure that the level of service that anybody that represents my organization gave was at the standard that I kept and had for my organization, right? So it wasn't so much what I'm delegating or can I relinquish control. It was the level of service. And another thing that I feel like I did very well, and I want to talk about this because I think it's super critical for businesses, is my processes and procedures. I have a 15-step sales process. I have an onboarding process. My emails are sequenced and automated. When you come into the company, you know what time you start, you know what time you stop, you know where to get documents, you know what to do when you have this challenge or that challenge or that challenge. If a client says this, these are the emails that go out, these are the points of contact. When you schedule a post on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, this is the text copy sample. This is how you set up the videos. Literally down to if it's italic, if it's bold, if it's underlined, you have all those steps set up. And sometimes it might be like slightly OD, but again, it provides a high level of service every single time, right? So again, it's not just a like to have, it's a standard at this point. And
right.
I think that my people, my clients, my partners, the folks that know me and work with me, they absolutely appreciate that.
And what's good about what you're saying right now is it makes your business scalable. Yes. That means anyone can come in, follow your standards and procedures, and grow your business, because you don't have to spend the time to explain to every single person what they need to be doing, because you have it in black and white. I found for me, delegation has been the worst thing, except for things that I don't know how to do. Like I have a bookkeeper, I have a CPA. I'm not going to touch that because I don't really know it. Marketing, I would rather hire someone because I'm just not a creative marketing type. But with me, with the legal services, even, when I had my associates, it was so hard to be able to give someone else something that I would have to sit as the partner and explain how to do it. And it just, my Caribbeanness comes out where I go, just give it to me. I'll just, I can do it faster than the time it takes me to explain it to you. I'll just do it. But that and that's a personal thing to work on.
You'll have to fight that urge. You'll have to fight that urge. And I say that because what ends up happening is, like you said, right? You have to essentially have the end in mind, or build it to sell it, right? And build it to scale it, right? Whether you do or don't want to, you have the choice, right? So now you're giving yourself that choice. And 4 things that I talk about with some of my with my business clients, in partner companies, are 4 areas, right? So delegation, automation, right? Systemizing things, and elimination, right? So what is this process? Is it necessary? Is it redundant? Is it something that I absolutely need in my business? Nope. All right, eliminate it. Can this be automated? Is there a software? Is there a system that can do this? Okay, awesome. That's what's going to do it. Is there someone that I can now delegate this specific task to? Yes. Okay, boom, I'm going to give it to that person. And like you mentioned, you can then revise it, or you can review it and give it that final check off. Okay, now go ahead and send it to the client, right? And then again, the last thing, is it now my responsibility? What percentage of these things that the company has to do now requires Stephanie specifically? Does it actually require my level of expertise? Does it actually require my level of care? So all these things are critical. And that way you can leverage your expertise, right? You can focus on the things that you're amazing at, and have softwares that are amazing at automate. You have an assistant that's amazing at social media, have her do social media. So everyone is playing to their strengths. And again, that means that you're getting the best outcome in every single area of the business. Because again, everyone is playing to their strengths, and you're maximizing everybody to their fullest potential.
And that's the human capital that you're talking about.
Yes, ma'am.
Making sure that everyone gets to do what they're good at, and it doesn't become a drain on the business.
Yes,
but
ma'am.
Let's talk about your actual company now, because I don't want to run out of time. And then they're like, the listeners go, I have no idea what she does. So let's talk about specifically what you do.
Sure.
Explain your services. I know you sort of touched on it, but let the listeners know what PEO is and all that, because it might not be terms that they're familiar with.
Absolutely. So what I do, and I'll kind of be, and I'll provide examples to kind of help clarify certain things. So I am an independent payroll and PEO broker, and PEO stands for Professional Employer Organization, right? So again, this is essentially a company or an organization that helps to manage the administrative aspects of operating your business. So within that area, it breaks down into 4 core areas. So number 1 being payroll services and payroll processing. That's going to be getting your W-2 employees on payroll, paying them every week, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, whatever that is going to be. They're coming on payroll, they complete their W-4 forms and everything that they need as a new employee, and they're remitting those payments. They also help with taxes on the employer's behalf. So they're paying your quarterly taxes, they're paying your annual taxes. You don't have to remember all of these various dates. You don't have to be burdened or inundated with all of these different things that, especially because of COVID and the CARES Act, has changed so very much. You don't have to be a tax expert. You don't have to be a payroll expert. The PEO will manage that for you. The second area is human resource services. So that's encompassing of, again, some of processes and procedures, some employee training, safety manuals. These are things that an employer is responsible for. And let's use me as an example. If I'm an employee coming into an organization, do I know when to start work? Do I know how much vacation time I accrue within a year? Do I know what's the protocol if Yes, exactly. Do I know what's the protocol if I'm injured at work, right? So how are these things managed? You mentioned sick leave, bereavement, wage garnishments, all those various things. That's all handled, OSHA, like the whole gamut, especially now because of COVID. People are managing or looking to manage, how do I effectively and safely bring my employees back into the office? How do I make sure that they're safe and they're comfortable working within this office? Another thing that we talk about within the HR arena, especially with 2020 being what it was, is the racial disparity that exists. So when you now have an employee that's asking certain questions, how many people of color are we actually hiring here? How many people Are you actually, interviewing? What does our vendor list look like? How do you navigate those questions? How do you, have those conversations, right? So these are things from an HR perspective that a lot of people don't take into consideration until it's too late or until something happens. But you want to be proactive about these things. And this is the second area that PEO companies assist with. The third area is workers' compensation. So this is the line of insurance coverage that a business owner pays for when an employee is injured on the job. So again, I work for a particular company, I slip and fall. What this insurance is going to now do is help pay for my time away from work, any hospital bills. Let's say it was a drastic fall, honey. And unfortunately, I passed away. It'll pay for a death benefit. So this is the line of insurance, especially in the state of Florida, when you have 4 or more full-time or equivalent employees you're required to have by law. Or if you're in a construction industry, when you have 1 or more employees, you're required to have by law. But that's the line of insurance coverage that'll help compensate and provide protection for the employee as well as the business owner in the event that there's a claim or an injury during the scope of work for employees. The last area is employee benefits. So again, I'm an employee for ABC company. I want health insurance, I want vision, I want dental, I might even want some ancillary 401k and so forth. What this will now do, and the PEO strategically works and provide economies of scale, right? So they're like your Costco compared to your Publix. They buy in bulk, honey. So now you're buying into their big business benefits, okay? And so now you have access to these big business solutions at a much lower rate, especially for small and mid-sized businesses. Health insurance can be a huge expense, right? But what it helps to do is bring that expense a little bit lower for you. It gives you access to it because not a lot of small and mid-sized businesses has access to benefits, and especially the diverse plan designs that a PEO has. Because in essence, what it does is pull the client companies together. And now instead of me being a company with 5 employees or him with 10, this PEO now has thousands and thousands of employees. And so again, they have the economies of scale, they have that buying power and can negotiate and leverage that to get a master health plan, more diversity in terms of the plan design, better rates that they then pass on those savings to you. And so those are the 4 core areas in which a PEO operates. And for me specifically, I'm a broker. So what that means is I'm talking to Rishma. Okay, we're looking to hire, we're looking to bring on a few employees. What makes the most sense for me and my company at this particular point in time? In a year, here are a few of my strategic goals. Here's what I'm facing today. How do I know which one of these companies is ideal or a good fit for me? What I come and do, and I do a business, I come and do a business audit. I assess what your current status is, and again, what your strategic goals are. What is your outlook? What is your budget? What matters to you, right? What is not working right now? What does it look like if we fix it? How do we get there? So from that point, I reach out to my PEO partners, gather some quotes, then I put together a comparative analysis. From that, I present it, and then we implement the solution that makes the most sense for you. I know that was a lot.
Good.
So give me all the questions.
No, that's good. No, that's good. That's good, because I want to make sure that you're able to talk about your services, not just about you as an entrepreneur, because I'm sure people are going to fall in love with you just hearing the first segment of the show, but I want them to know exactly what it is that you do. So my follow-up questions are these. So for the listeners out there and the viewers eventually, a PEO company is an outside company that you're hiring who are going to house the people that you're hiring. I just want to make that distinction. So it's not a direct hire in the way that you would bring someone on as a W-2 employee. I just kind of want you to talk about that distinction between the direct hire and the PEO.
Sure. Okay. So when you're working with a PEO, that relationship between that client company, so let's call it ABC Trucking, and that PEO, 123 PEO, what happens is they form what's called a co-employer relationship, right? So they both become employers, if you will, of that particular employee or that group of employees. So the PEO becomes the employer of record for the purposes of tax remittance and things of that nature. And again, securing the workers' comp coverage, it's going to be in that PEO's name, okay? For the purposes of the day-to-day management and operations of the employee, again, still determining what time they come in, what uniform they wear,
what tasks they do,
correct?
Right? What tasks they do as well, right?
Mm-hmm. So that client company still has control of their business operations, right? So they are still employees of that client company. But for purposes, again, of the daily operations, if you will, that client company is still the employer. And for the purposes of tax remittance and things of that nature, the PEO becomes the employer of record. So they joined forces to manage effectively those employees, and again, put the best resources in place. So you get access to the experts, right? The SHRM certified, the folks that are professionals in their space when it comes to the HR, when it comes to the workers' comp and benefits, right? But now you still remain the expert as a trucking company or a roofing company or an attorney or a dental office or whatever it turns out that you love and have passion for. You can still be the expert in that space, but you then have the ability to leverage the professionals on the PEO side. So that's essentially the makeup, if you will, of that co-employer relationship.
And also for lawsuits. So if there is a lawsuit, right? There is a lawsuit, a workers' comp claim like you're talking about, or there's some sort of employee, quote, that does something in the scope of their employment or outside the scope of their employment. It's not necessarily your company that's being sued. It's the PEO
you don't have
company.
to, you don't have to bear the brunt of that burden, right? So now it's a shared liability, if you will. So that PEO will then leverage their attorneys. They'll leverage their claims management department. They will help you manage those claims. They'll deal with that directly, right? They'll also assist you and your company with whatever it is in terms of navigating those waters. That there's a suit that arises as a result of something that happened during the scope of work. So in terms of liability, it's a shared liability relationship. And so again, you can kind of lean on the expertise and the attorneys and the claims management process, because that's what they're there for. They're there to be a resource to you. So you use them, you leverage them. You say, you know what, something happened. There was a claim. This is, I'm operating my business, but things happen. And, they're there to help you. And they're also preventative as well. They put in safety measures. They provide safety training. They have classes. They have SHRM certified people, again, talking about things and best practices and toolbox talks. So they play both roles, right? So they help on the preventative side, but they also make sure they're a resource to you in the event that something happens. So you don't lose that relationship. You don't lose that support, if you will, if something were to happen. They make sure that they're there to kind of keep you whole in the event that something did happen.
Is there a possibility, let's say it's a smaller company and they've assigned a couple of people to you and you absolutely love them and you want to take them under your wing and you want to directly hire them? Is there a possibility of doing that, or are they kind of beholden to the PEO company?
So if there are employees that the company wants to hire?
Yeah, like you want to do a direct hire because they sent you a superstar and you just don't want to ever lose this person.
Absolutely. So there are a few reasons maybe why a PEO would really stand and say, you cannot hire this person. Let's say that they're a trucking company, again, for instance, and you have someone that has a DUI on their record, that they've been in several accidents and there's a lot going on, and you're a trucking company, so you're going to have this person on the road 24/7. That's not going to be a fit. The PEO will then have to step in and say, look, you know what, it doesn't make sense to bring this person on because our rates are going to skyrocket as a result of this person being on our policy, right? They're exposing you as a client company because chances are within a very short amount of time, there's likely to be a claim, right? And therefore our costs collectively will then go up, right? But most of the time, the PEO gives the client company full discretion in terms of who they're able to hire and who they're able to bring on. Again, they're there to be a resource. They're there to be a sounding board. So let's say that this person was in the organization and there was a claim, right? And if that claim happened, and let's say that they did the process and assessment, and it turns out the person was drunk on the job, right? Then they might request, hey, look, we're going to have to let this person go, right? So that's, again, when they're going to step in. But it's not a matter of, I don't want you to hire this person. Again, you guys are partners, right? You're co-employers. I want you to bring on the roster.
It's a resource.
Yes.
Right.
So they want
it's
you
a
to bring
resource
on those phenomenal
for you.
people.
Are there any disadvantages? Because this sounds fabulous especially for startup companies. No, it really does, because you don't have to go at it by yourselves.
Correct.
Like you're talking about. You have a partner, you have resources. Are there any disadvantages for using a PEO company?
Sure. So in terms of disadvantages, and again, they're not disadvantages per se, But one area where a client company might have to determine if it's a good fit for them is number one, of course, budget, right? So if you are a new business, if you are just entering into a particular space, you have to look at what your budget is. You have to look at what your bottom line is. And that's part of the assessment that I have with my clients. We're looking at the numbers. That's a huge factor in determining if this is going to be a true solution for you, right? So when I mentioned that cost analysis that we do, I break down the numbers. Yeah. We're looking at the state unemployment tax. We're looking at the federal employment tax. We're looking at workers' comp. We're looking at admin. We're looking at all these cost factors to make sure that it's the right solution for you and your business, right? In terms of customer service, is that something that matters to you? That's something that we're assessing because there's over 900 PEOs, right? And so in identifying the one that makes the most sense for you, tell me what you're looking for. Don't BS me, because then I won't be able to give it to you straight, right? So when you let me know what matters to you and what doesn't, we can assess the right PEO for you. I literally have clients that are like, Steph, look, don't call me. Like, unless there's an emergency, I don't need you to call me every day and just check up on me. Like, that's not necessary, right? And I have other clients that I call them and it's been like 2 months. They're like, oh my God, I never hear from you, Stephanie. I'm like, are you serious? I just called you like 2 months ago, right? So you have both sides of the spectrum. And so it's about identifying what matters to my clients, what is a true asset and what isn't, what challenges are they facing and what's going to specifically solve those challenges. Because a AC repair company that's looking for workers' compensation support, they might not care so much about benefits at this particular point in time when they're trying to get their certificates of insurance in order to get those contracts, right? They don't necessarily care about those things. But let's say I am working with a law firm that wants to hire and retain top talent. They want the paralegals to come. They want the other attorneys to come and stay with their firm, right? They don't want them to leave and maybe take clients. So benefits is critically important, right? They want to make sure they have amazing plan designs, great rates, amazing 401k that even matches, right? So that's a critical element for them, right? It's again, it's an asset to the organization because they can attract top talent and keep that talent, right? So there's no true negative or what's wrong with. It's more of which one is the best
what
for
fits you.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
What's your best fit? Right. So you mentioned a lot of different industries in your examples. Law firms, trucking companies, construction companies. I've spoken to you about my husband and his security company.
Yes.
So I guess this really does fit every industry, right? Because the reason that I knew about what a PEO company is because my husband does have a security company, and we were talking about maybe using PEO rather than a direct hire, and that's how I got tuned into what you do. That really and truly, that's the way that I got tuned into what you're doing. Do you have like a typical client though, like in terms of the amount of people that they want to hire, in terms of the types of benefits? Like, what is your sort of like not standard, but your typical clientele?
Sure. So, and again, those examples that I gave are all real examples. I have clients in all of those spaces. So the ideal, and I can give you the client profile, if you will, for your average PEO. So the average PEO has client companies anywhere between 16 to 19 employees within their company. I have clients that have one employee, right? And I have clients that go to the hundreds, right? But the average is those smaller mid-sized businesses. So maybe again, anywhere between 16 to 19 employees. They might have been in business for a year or two, or they're at that 5-year mark and they're on the cusp of making some changes and growing, but they need a little bit of support to get there. In terms of the industry, right? For me, I found that I've been able to offer the most value and truly impact the bottom line and then help them make some money in the trades, right? So these are, again, HVAC, electrical, electricians. These are roofing companies, these are trucking companies, these are logistic companies. So these are the companies that I've been able to make the most significant impact in terms of their bottom line. I have one company called M&S Air Conditioning. I was able to save them, I think it was over like $15,000, right? So we're talking like some real money, right? And if you're able to strategically, make these choices for your business, you can make this area a profit center. And that's something that I like to educate my clients on. Like, when I say empower, I truly mean that. I want to give you the tools and resources and access to make money. right? And so if we can reduce your exposure, if we can reduce your risk, right? So think about it, let's put it this way. With that same client, if I'm able to compete, so let's say we're both bidding on a project, right? M&S Air Conditioning, another air conditioning company, they're competing on a project, they're bidding for a project. But this one, this his competitor, right? His mod or modifier, and I don't want to speak in too many industry terms, but let's say his insurance rate is 2 times as much. So already he's at a disadvantage because he has to pay twice as much for insurance, right? Where we were able to get their rates reduced, right, compared to the average for the industry. So you already have the opportunity to bid just a little bit lower and still have greater margins than your competitor because of that, right? So now that you're bidding a little bit less, you're more likely to get that project. You have your certificates insurance in time. You have all of your paperwork documented properly. You know, all your employees are properly trained and effective at doing what they need to do. So not only will you likely get the project, you'll produce better. So now this would happen over and over and over again. And there's going to be just more and more and more of a disparity between that person, that AC company and the client. So then again, they're winning more projects time and time and time again. Because of that, they could probably pay their employees more, which means that they're going to have the first pick when it comes to quality and amazing employees. They're going to have the first pick when it comes to that. Because they land these different projects, Broward County is going to call them, Dade County is going to call them, Palm Beach County is going to call them, they get more projects. So it directly impacts their bottom line, right? And it's strategy. Like you don't survive in business on the whim. It's strategy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind
and
of
the
what
planning.
I bring to the business. Exactly.
Right, and the planning. And I think what you said is kind of revolutionary. I don't think companies think that in the hiring process that's somewhere where they have a profit margin.
Absolutely.
You know, you think about profit margin in terms of your your margin on your goods, your margin on your services, your margin on whatever else, your overhead margin. You think about that, but you don't really think about margin in terms of hiring. So that's kind of revolutionary, and it's fantastic that you're bringing this to everyone's attention. I can't believe the hour has gone by already. It's flew by. Yes. It's been so much fun. I definitely have to have you back on the show, but I will not let you leave without giving us all your contact information, all your socials. Awesome. How can people find you, Stephanie?
Awesome. So me personally and the business. So I am Stephanie Fortune. On most channels and social media networks, you can find me at Stephanie Fortune. I believe I'm Stephanie_Fortune_ on Instagram. The business account is Fortune_BC. On Facebook, I am Stephanie Fortune, and the company is Fortune Business Consulting. And on LinkedIn, same thing. So Stephanie Fortune Business Consulting. I could also be connected with via email, and that's at Stephanie at FortuneBizConsulting.com. And they could also, of course, connect with me virtually on the website at FortuneBizConsulting.com.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being on the show. Guys, follow Stephanie. Yes. I follow her on LinkedIn, and she has all these great clips that she puts together explaining about, business development, explaining about the PEO services, the benefit that you could have from your company, just really great stuff that she puts together for her content. A lot better than the content I put together, but that's okay. I won't go there.
You gotta give
because I can't delegate. That's why. I can't delegate. That's why. But thank you so much, Stephanie. It's been a pleasure. I mean, I love having the business owners that we have. They're just so inspiring, so brilliant. And it just goes to show that if you really put your mind together and you focus on what you want, and you have that drive that we always talk about, that entrepreneurship drive, that entrepreneurial drive that you have within you, you really can achieve everything. And my bottom line today is that I wanted our listeners to know that this planning that we talked about, the Warren Buffett quote, plan. So you have your resources. These PEO services sound like great resources that you can have for your company that affects every aspect of your business, including your bottom line and your margin when it comes to hiring. Contact Stephanie if you're interested in seeing how you can save money on your company by using a PEO service. Definitely look into it. Make sure you focus and you plan, because success comes when you're minding your business.
Content on Minding Your Business is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be construed as specific legal advice. This show discusses general legal issues affecting business owners. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily that of the show. If you need assistance with your specific legal issue, please consult with a licensed attorney.